And hello once more, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. Welcome to a Druids Extra. Yep, I can't do a Druids Dozen this week. Got a lot on. Alien Stash Dinner out gigging over the weekend. I've got an old friend visiting as well who Mike Martin. I ain't seen him for about 4 years, so he's coming over to spend the weekend with us. And I'm getting ready to go away on holiday down to Devon for a week. So I'm taking time out to record this little extra kind of thing to cover for the Druids Dozen. The Druids Dozen will return in a couple of weeks' time. But this is a thing called Oh How We Used to Laugh. And basically I'm looking at some comedy albums. Now, those of you of a younger disposition, you know, under the age of 40, may not remember a time when you hadn't got instant entertainment where, you know, these days you come in from the pub with your mates, you want to have a bit of a laugh. You got plenty of options. You can go on YouTube and stream the latest edition of whatever. You can break out a DVD, you know, stick Bill Bailey on or something like that. But, you know, before then, you had VHS tapes. And before VHS tapes, well, if you came in from the pub or came out back from college or whatever with your mates and you fancied a laugh, you had to resort to the old comedy LPs. Yes, from the late 70s onwards, VHSs were available, but you had to rent them because to buy them, they were hideously expensive. I mean, looking at some prices, a VHS tape around about 1980, pre-recorded one, would normally cost about 45 quid. Now, around about that time, my take-home wages are only, after taxes, are only about 80 quid. So I ain't going to blow off my week's wages on a frigging Jasper Carrott DVD, VHS. So we went and got the LPs. So I dragged out a selection from my little selection of comedy LPs. And we're just going to wave in front of you and we're going to have a reminisce of how we used to laugh. Going to start off with this lady. And these are going to be loosely chronological and kind of loosely themed as well. This is 6 nursery school sketches by Joyce Grenfell. Now, Joyce Grenfell, there's the lady herself on the back. You may recognise her if you like old movies. She was a stalwart of a lot of the old Ealing comedies, normally playing the put-upon teacher, the put-upon policewoman, that kind of thing, frustrated in love and kind of bumbling her way through sort of like situations. She normally did, I think she did some of the early Carry On films as well, but don't quote me on that. Anyway, besides doing her film work, she also did a lot of work on the radio. It was the BBC then, because that was all you had was the BBC, where she used to do these kind of amusing monologues, sort of like silly songs type thing. Kind of a precursor to what Victoria Wood would do in the 80s and 90s. And Joyce Grenfell's most famous creation is her nursery school sketches, where she, it was little monologues where she played a nursery school teacher trying to control a load of 3 and 4 year olds who remained silent, and they just had names like George. George, don't do that. It was kind of, you never did find out what George was doing, but yeah. They're sweet. They are funny, but they're very dated these days. You know, I'm of the opinion if something is genuinely funny in 19 whenever, it's going to be genuinely funny today. And I still have a chuckle. I was listening to a couple of the sketches off this album and had a bit of a chuckle about them now. It's, you know, quite true to form. Anyone that's ever dealt with a room full of toddlers will know what a nightmare it can be. And it's really well observed. These particular versions were recorded specially for EMI for this record in 1977, although the sketches themselves do date back to the 1960s. Yeah, if you like a bit of retro humour, go check her out. She is a very funny and intelligent lady, and if you want to see her sketches updated, Maureen Lipman has done some tribute performances where she impersonates Joyce Grenfell perfectly. So, yeah, Joyce Grenfell, 6 nursery sketches. George, don't do that. Okay, next up, couple of BBC sessions, BBC sitcoms, one radio and one TV. We're going to start off on the radio. This is Tony Handcock and a couple of cuts from his Handcock's half-hour classic radio series. Tony Handcock, one of the all-time greats of British comedy, quite a tragic figure, killed himself in the 1960s. Battled depression all his life, but you know, it's that kind of old tortured clown cliche, a very dry, cutting, very observant type of humour, a man out of control, barely in control. It's a standard comedy trope, and on this album, this represents two of probably his best known programs, the Radio Ham and the Blood Donor. You know, what? A pint? That's half an armful, etc. Just very, very well acted, with a great supporting cast that includes Patrick Cargill, Clive Dunn, you know, Corporal Jones from Dad's Army, June Whitfield, Frank Thornton, Hugh Lloyd, John Buthell, Annie Leckie. All great performances, making for some genuinely belly laughing material. Yeah, I can't rate Handcock's brilliance highly enough. Recommend that you check out, so if you've not heard him, not come across him, check out some of his radio stuff. He also did adapted some of the work for TV as well, and did a couple of great films. The two that spring to mind are the Rebel, where it's like a side swipe at modern art, and the Punch and Judy Man with John DiMaggio acting alongside him, playing a Punch and Judy Man on a British seaside town. But yeah, Tony Handcock, absolute legend, and believe me, most of these I was playing them through, I was laughing when researching this. I was laughing my guts out. I'm not going to bother showing you. I could show you the discs if you're interested. There we are. This is a Hallmark budget pressing, but you know, it's still available. Got to get away now. Come on, John. There's the top. Here we go. Yeah. Okay, next up, another sitcom, and one from the 1970s. Here we go. This is a la carte. It's a couple of Fawlty Towers episodes. Now, what the BBC did to save themselves a bit of money back in the 1970s, their classic TV sitcoms, they adapted for the radio. Sometimes, in the case of a programme like Dad's Army, they would be re-scripted for the radio. The visual gags will be taken out and replaced with verbal editions of the gags, and they'll be recorded specially. Others, like Fawlty Towers, Steptoe and Son, they basically took the soundtrack from the TV shows and re-edited them for radio broadcast. And this is what we got here. Two classic Fawlty Towers episodes. Gourmet Night, which is the one where Basil Fawlty ends up thrashing his Morris 1100 with a branch of a tree in the middle of a Torquay street. And the Americans, you know, get me a Wardolph salad. You know, give me a screwdriver. Oh, something loose in your room, sir. Yeah, just again, Fawlty Towers still every time it's repeated on the BBC or UK Gold, still gets massive audiences of a couple of million. And you know, it was recently, that last year was voted the funniest British sitcom of all time. I concur. It still has me in stitches. You got Basil Fawlty, the played by John Cleese, of course, the kind of blustering, flustering, officious, kind of out of pace and only barely in control, if at all, hotel owner, surrounded by a cast of characters, including his dragon-like wife Sybil, the well-meaning and the only sane person in the place, Polly, the waitress and room cleaner. Manuel, the Spanish butler, played by the legendary Andrew Sachs. And, yeah, then it just goes on from there. Is it the Brigadier, etc.? Oh, I can't remember. But anyway, overall, just hilariously funny. The BBC adapted all the Fawlty Towers for radio broadcast. They brought about 6 of the other 12 episodes out on vinyl. I've got the 6 that the 3 albums of the 6 episodes they brought out. Although recently they just issued a box set on vinyl and CD and for download with all of them on there. So you can still get them, still check them out should you want to have some. Or yeah, something you can play in the car and chuckle as you're driving. Yeah, Fawlty Towers, a la carte, gourmet night in the Americans. Still good stuff. Okay, the next couple, we're gonna have a couple of stand-up comedians, and from a movement that was known as the folk comedians. Now, this is a series of comics. Most of them started out as folk singers in the late 1960s, very early 1970s, but they began to realise they were getting more reaction from the amusing monologues between songs than they were for the songs themselves. So they slowly transmuted from being folk singers into comedians. And it seemed like most parts of the country threw up a local hero on this scene. I mean, Scotland gave us Billy Connolly. In the Bristol and southwest of England, we got the legendary Fred Wedlock. There was Max Boyce, came out of Wales. There was Tony Catstick from Yorkshire. And from Birmingham and the Midlands, Jasper Carrott. Ginger, toss of the head, brummy lad that used to, schoolmates of Bevan from ELO, for God's sake. Again, failed folk singer. He admits he's a failed folk singer. Started doing the comedy routines, and eventually the folk took very much a backstage, and the singing became a stand-up. Now, this is an album from 1976, Carrots in Knots. Recorded, I don't know exactly what the venue was, but recorded somewhere in Nottingham. It sounds like a club or a small venue. It doesn't sound like one of the big calls that he used to tour in his later days. And this is pretty damn funny. Of course, Jasper Carrott, massive Birmingham City football fan for his sins. There's a whole sequence on the second side about going to see Birmingham City playing away at Man United and all that kind of thing. And yeah, there's a guide to country and western, reminiscences of him playing on Top of the Pops. He had a hit single just before this with a song called Funky Moped. The thing was, it wasn't the A-side that was selling it. It was a little routine called the Magic Roundabout that was became a bit of a cult classic, and yeah, people were buying the single for that. But anyway, because of the A-side, he ended up playing on Top of the Pops. Funny routine about going down to that. I've got quite a few Carrott albums. This is my favourite. My problem with Jasper Carrott is he tended to rehash a lot of his material. Consecutive albums would have very similar, if not identical, stories about moles in his garden, or excuses Australians give when claiming car insurance, 2 of his famous sketches, and or how to cure zits, etc. It's all funny, but by the early 1980s, I was beginning to not buy Carrott albums or go see him live, because you knew you'll get a lot of the material be rehashed. Shame, but and then after that, of course, he did the great sitcom The Detectives, and then ended up with one of the shittiest game shows on telly called Golden Balls. The name is half right, but it's not the golden bit that's correct. Shame. Tragic end to a career of a really funny man. Yeah, Jasper Carrott, Carrot in Knots. Worth a laugh. And the one I didn't mention when I was talking about the folk comedians is my favourite, and still one of my favourite funny men of all time. Mike Harding. The Rochdale Cowboy, again from that folk club circuit, came out of Rochdale. Now lives in Yorkshire. He's turned traitor and crossed the border. Boo, hiss. I lived in Lancashire for a bit. Well, I've got friends in Yorkshire, I'll admit. Hysterically funny bloke. Again, a little short toss-of-their bloke with glasses. And this guy was the master of the Shaggy Dog story. He's got, you know, he would take a little kind of what would normally be a gag or a little reminiscent, someone will tell him 5 minutes and spin it out for 25 with little asides, etc. Very similar to what Bill Bailey does when he goes off on his random streams of consciousness stuff. And Bill Bailey has been quoted as Mike Harding being one of his influences. Not only is the Bill Bailey thing with his kind of Shaggy Dog story yarns, but also Mike Harding, unlike a lot of those other folk comedians, never really dropped his music. And his live performances will be studied with songs, some comedy songs, but he also used to drop in some serious folky stuff as well. And he's recorded a couple of serious folk albums. And these days he's probably best known, I can't remember the TV, it was Radio 2, but I think he's taking it elsewhere now. But doing radio folk music programs, as well as like going back to playing actual folk music in folk clubs. And he also is a bit of an author, written quite a few books. So you know, he's a guy who's got a deep and varied career that's well worth checking out. I've got quite a few Mike Harding albums. This is probably one of my favourites. It's only a single album, not his others are double, but it's only a single. Again, recorded in Nottingham at the Aberosh Junior Arsonist Club. I don't believe that for a minute. This sounds like it sounded like it recorded in a major theatre, judging by the sound of the audience. And it contains, well, the first side starts off with a kind of comedy of differences, reminiscences of him touring the States and getting linguistically mixed up, going into New York, Delhi and asking for a faggot and getting a surprise. Faggot in the UK, by the way, is a kind of minced sausage kind of pate kind of thing, not what the Americans call faggots. And then he goes on about Americans coming to Britain and not understanding the language. Then it goes into this big kind of anti-war kind of Reagan and Thatcher kind of, probably as politically as he ever got, rant about nuclear holocaust and that. And then the second side, primarily you've got is a thing called the 14.5 pound budgie. Mike Harding had a thing about budgies, and you know, they crop up in his writings, they crop up in a lot of his stand-up. And this is a fantastic 20-minute Shaggy Dog story about babysitting a neighbour's budgie that dies and then tries to get it changed at a pet shop, an identical one, and it just goes on and on and on. Ends up with oven-ready turkeys, live turkeys, kind of eating old lady sandwiches, etc. Very, very funny. Very, you know. Again, I was listening to that before I recorded this, and I was cracking up, even though I've heard it so many times before. Yeah, check out Mike Harding if you like, especially if you like Bill Bailey. You might find Mike Harding interesting. And this one I would recommend, the Red Specs album. And this is from when was it? 1981. Okay, now next up, I want to talk about a radio show that I haven't got any recordings from. A radio show called Sorry, I'll Read That Again. Basically, it was a group of comedians doing kind of strange, surreal, rambling stories. It was part of a group of people came out of the Cambridge Footlights review scene. These people included John Cleese, Michael Palin, Terry Jones, and then these guys, the goodies, the Graham Garden, Bill Oddie, best known as a bird watcher these days, and the late great Tim Brooke Taylor, one of the victims of COVID. And basically there was a series of radio and TV shows, including the Not the 1948 show, oh god, that was the week that was, Sorry, I'll Read That Again, Sorry, I Haven't a Clue, all kind of involving various incarnations of what was the Goodies and what went on to become Monty Python. And then the BBC were offering contracts for a new series. There was a bit of a disagreement amongst the group about what they wanted to do. Monty Python wanted to pursue a more of a quick-fire sketch format. The Goodies were into doing sort of like a surreal sitcom. The BBC commissioned both, and I love both. I'm a massive Goodies fan. Now, this album here, one of quite a few the Goodies did, doesn't contain much of their TV material, if any. It actually just contains none. Primarily because, those of you may know, the Goodies had a bit of a sub-career as musicians. Or rather, Bill Oddie had a dream of being a rock star that he kind of got lucky with, and he dragged the other two along as well under the Goodies banner. It started out with, what was it I just mentioned? Sorry, I'll read that again. Where he would throw in the odd funny song to break up the show. And then that carried on into the Goodies, and then they eventually said, well, we've got these recordings, we might as well put them out as albums. One of which was the track called The Funky Gibbon, massive UK hit single, and then they did a load of albums after this. This album came out in, I want to say when, but it doesn't tell me on the back. Anyway, there's the front, there is the back. And, you know, they were signed to Island Records, for God's sake. You know, so they weren't kind of slouches. When is this? This is 1976, this one. This is just, this one's got various, known amongst Goodies fans with various titles. Officially, it's called The Goodies. It's also known as the latest album and Nothing to Do With Us. Where are we? Yeah. I've got a lyric sheet here as well, so you can sing along and laugh along. This album is quite cutting. The Goodies, you know, worked on several levels. Yes, they were very slapstick. Yes, they could. There's the famous, well, they were referred to as kids program, but they were a lot deeper than that. They had a lot of quite biting satire. I mean, one of their episodes, called Apartheid, which basically ripped the piss out of the apartheid South Africans, nearly caused an international incident. And they did have a bloke die of laughing during the Ecky Thump Black Pudding series. Literally laughed himself to death. On this one, you've got a series of interesting tracks. It cuts off of the thing called The Policeman's Opera, which is an 11.5-minute epic. It is a rock opera, a mini rock opera. Deals with police corruption, workplace bullying, racism within the police. All, you know, for 1976, this is biting. Yes, some of the way it's phrased and some of the language may not quite cut the mustard these days, you know, because times have changed, sensibilities have changed. But, you know, I've got a book round somewhere where the Goodies kind of talk about their career, and they turn around and said, well, yeah, if they had hindsight, maybe they would have phrased things a little bit differently, but there was nothing meant sort of like malicious at the time. Yeah, you've also got cuts like, was it Blowing Off and Cactus in My Y Fronts, which are two songs hangover from the, sorry, I'll read that again, radio series. You've got I Wish I Could Get High, which is a kind of Cheech and Chong kind of parody, a Cheech and Chong-esque parody about sort of dope music, etc. Yeah, it's just an Elizabeth Rules UK, which is a kind of punk kind of send-up. It's just a great album. Just yeah, and it, you know, the music's quite cool. At various times, they used to use people like Jules Holland and Chris Thompson playing with them, none of which appear on this album. This is people I don't quite recognise. Oh, Chris Rea on guitar. Sorry, oh, there's someone I recognise. Chris Rea played guest guitar on this. But yeah, the Goodies TV series has just recently been box set reissued, and there are a couple of CDs out of collecting of their best of the music stuff. Although if you want the original vinyls, they are quite hard to find these days. But yeah, the Goodies, yeah, cracking. Still one of my favourites. And leads us on to what the rest of them did. Here we go. This is Monty Python's Instant Record Collection. The pick of the best of some recently repeated Monty Python again, Volume 2. Again, I've got quite a few Monty Python albums in the collection, and this was the one I dragged out because it just makes me laugh from beginning to end. It is a best of. You got Alistair Cook being attacked by a dog, wink, wink, nudge, nudge. Constitutional Peasants, which is from Holy Grail. French Torture, also from the Holy Grail. The Cheese Emporium. The Parrot Sketch. Australian Philosophy. It's basically a best of set. But, you know, it goes beyond that because you've got the album credits at the back. It's got what is it? Other recordings for hard of hearing. Motorways of the World. Ulysses Concord. I Enjoy Shouting by Vladimir Nabokov of the Royal Philharmonic Orchestra. In the Wee Small Hours by the Combined Pneumatic Drills of Dalston. Screaming at the Royal Festival Hall is Retsworth Shouting, comedy shouting at its best. Lulu Shrinks Gershwin. You know, just the kind of typical Python-esque surrealism of it. And also mentions about the new Sounds of Fish album. Monty Python fans will know they have a big thing about fish. Then you got this kind of Where Are They Now thing about, you know, where to go if you got a lot of money. Parody of the fact that Monty Python made a lot of money out of their stuff. Yeah, great stuff indeed. Again, Python to me, some of the stuff that never grows old. Yes, given the right amounts of alcoholic intoxication, stick on a Python album or a TV show, and I can normally quote along. But yeah, just really good stuff. Monty Python's Instant Record Collection, classic. Now, next up, we got this. Going on into the 1980s. This is Not the 9 O'Clock News. One of a couple of albums I brought out from the classic kind of satire sketch show. From, when was this one? This would be... 1980. If you come across Not the 9 O'Clock News, it was basically 4 satirical comedians, Rowan Atkinson, Griff Rhys-Jones, Mel Smith and Pamela Stevenson, doing kind of, you know, it was parodies of what was going on in the news and pop culture, etc. Overall, made for, it was a, you know, it was the very start of the alternative comedy boom. This is pre-Young Ones stuff. This is just then this was the cutting edge. I was still at, last year at school when this was first on, and everyone went in and did you see that thing last night? You know, yes, looking back at it, it is kind of carrying on from you know, the classics of like That Was the Week That Was, etc., the news quiz. But overall, it's, you know, makes an interesting snapshot of what was going on topically at the time. On this one, you've got what was it? Stout Life, Gay Christians, a couple of excellent songs. You've got where is it? The Bouncing Song, which is a kind of madness parody. Confrontation, which is a kind of a song covered by Chaos UK did a cover version of it. So out and out kind of crust punk number. Thrown in with some tracks like David Bloody Attenborough, where he's talking about an intelligent gorilla. There's parodies of TV shows like That's Life and etc. Got Billy Connolly making a guest appearance on here. Just makes for still genuinely funny. Now maybe I find it funny because, you know, I remember the news that was going on at the time, but yeah, it makes interesting stuff. A lot of the sketches and actually full episodes are available on YouTube. The whole box set of all 3 series of Not 9 O'Clock News is still available. So if you haven't come across them before, give it a listen, give it have a laugh. I'm talking to Rowen Atkinson. After Not 9 O'Clock News, of course, Rowen Atkinson went on to big things in his own right. I mean, this is live in Belfast, recorded in... Oh, when was this? Oh, it was recorded in 1980, so it was roundabout comparative to when he was doing the Not 9 O'Clock News stuff. I thought it was a bit later than that. Original records this is on. Yeah, this is, you know, these days I feel quite sorry for Mr. Atkinson because, you know, he was quite a good character comedian. He's got some great, you know, one of these rubber-faced people that could, you know, I mean, put it this way: if you ever seen Blackadder, he can make me crease my sides by just going, "Boop." Yeah, but these days, unfortunately, he's probably best known, especially over in the States, as Mr. Bean. And although that's quite humorous, it's not his best creation by a great deal. Same with Johnny English. Funny, but not his best. This is, so recorded in Belfast, and this is just him, yeah, I said, squeezed in on the tour between the 2nd and 3rd series of Not 9 O'Clock News. It's him going on doing a series of kind of monologues with various, you know, various characters. You've got, does the thing about the devil welcoming people to hell. Very, very funny. Is the American politician with in the routine that Senator Breer's dead. There's got is it the best man? There's the wedding sequence, the vicar, the best man, father, the bride. Very well observed. You know, 3 completely great characters. Sir Marcus Browning MP playing a sort of like out of touch, typically out of touch Tory MP, etc. Joined on here by a couple of people that will go on to other great things: Richard Curtis and Howard Goodall. You know, those of 4 Weddings and a Funeral, and again Blackadder fame, etc. Very, very good, very, very funny, and bit of a gem in my opinion. Yeah, Rowen Atkinson live in Belfast. There's more to Rowen than Mr. Bean, you know. And finally, the last one I dragged out today, another TV series tie-in. This one's from a bit later. This one's from 1986. This is the Spitting Image album. Yep. Spitting Image recently had a revamp on, but because it's only available on behind a paywall on, is it BritBox or whatever it is, I'm not going to be bothered watching it. And I've seen a couple of them, and it's like, yeah, maybe, maybe not. But anyway, there's the front. There is the back, and it comes with this. Big fold out poster. The Knobs, which was a kind of pop group that used to turn up. Obviously you can see who it is. It's Lady Di, the Queen, Charlie, and I think that's Sarah Prince Philip over there. Yeah, it turned up in quite a lot of the episodes of the Spitting Image. Again, very much of its era. Spitting Image, classic puppet show, spun a load of spin-offs all over the world, from Russia to China to parts of South America. The format was sold and carries on. Like I said, recently been rebooted in Britain. Again, side swipes at the news, pop culture, etc. On here, you've probably got the best known thing they ever did, which was the Chicken Song. There was a terrible British pop group called Black Lace. Used to do these do kind of Ibiza party sing-along disco numbers. And basically, they did a thing called the Chicken Song. Hold a chicken in the air, shove a deck chair up your nose, except fly a jumbo jet and amputate your toes. Parody of it. The B-side of which was even funnier. I've never met a nice South African. Again, a side swipe at the apartheid regime over there in South Africa, as it was at the time. Other highlights on here include We've Got Beards, a ZZ Top parody. What was it? Spock, the actor. My name is Spock. I'm an actor. I am not. Yeah. William Nimoy. No, Leonard Nimoy. Kind of having a slight rib at Pete Townsend appealing that his generation's getting old and needs their pensions. Yeah, it's just kind of there's another great little thing on here. Bernard Manning newsflash. Bernard Manning, horrible, nasty, racist comedian. Real nasty piece of work. And I'm not just saying that because of his reputation. I've known people that knew him and they say he was a despicable human being. But yeah, there's a quick newsflash. Bernard Manning is still not dead, unfortunately, sort of thing. Yeah, it's just really, it's quite funny. Interesting lineup. A lot of it was written by Ian Hislop from, what was it? What's the Private Eye? And Have I Got News for You? Other actors on here include, let's have a look. You've got Chris Barry, Harry Enfield, John Sessions, John Bird, John Glover, Jan Raven, you know, and a few others, Steve Nowden. Yeah, some of these people that go on to become some of the greatest writers and performers in British comedy throughout the 90s and the 2000s. Yeah, there are places it hasn't dated that well, but there's still places made me chuckle. So, yeah, that's the last one for today. Spitting Image, the album. So, what's your reminiscences of comedy albums? I've got a few others I could have dropped. I've concentrated on British albums this time. I've got some stuff like by George Carlin, etc., and Kenny Monteith, some American stuff. Although I do tend to prefer British comedy. It's the wise guy, American comedian. I just don't find that funny. I like more observant, kind of self-deprecating humour. But that's just me. So, what's your reminiscences of playing old comedy albums? Have you got any in your collection? Let me know. Tell me, what do you think of the funny thing you come across my card in, or have you watched this video, checked anything out and liked or disliked? Let me know in the comments. I'll be back next week with another short special. Don't know what it's going to be yet. I'm going to have to work that out. But then the week after that, the Druids dozen will return. So until next week, peeps, don't forget, like and subscribe, and I love you all. Bye.